Hello, welcome back to Leicester Fan TV. This is the Fox's Focus Show. We talk about all things Leicester. As you can probably tell, a lot of the fan base aren't happy at the moment. I think Tuesday's game reflected that. So tonight's show, we're going to both have a rant, I feel, about our feelings and what's been happening over the last not just even on Tuesday, but the last few months. And then we're going to put all your comments in. Good evening to everyone. Put your comments in, and we'll try and go through as many comments as you want, because we're no longer a fan channel and you fans. It's everyone's united in trying to make a difference that we think that is needed at the club. I'll let Simon go first because he will talk a bit about the set game on Tuesday and some of the things that have been going on regarding the manager and some of the things off the club. Then I'll have my say about my opinion, and then we fans view. But I will say that these opinions are mine and Simon's. They reflect anyone else on Leicester Fan TV. So mine and Simon's opinions, but we both feel equally that it's time for change, and what that change may be, how significant it is, there needs to be change, or else we are in trouble. So Simon, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jono. Evening to you. So let's pick this apart a little bit. The game against Southampton, let's start there then, because the first half, let's get that bit out of the way, was as good, if not better, than anything we've seen this season. But it's kind of short-lived, because all of that kind of fantastic play from Macassar and Winks, I thought in the first half, played fantastic to get us into a 3-0 winning position. I sat there personally at half-time not confident we'd win the game. And that's a little bit absurd, being 3-0 up and then just thinking, well, this team's not played more than half a game of football all season. So you kind of know that Southampton are going to try and react. You know they ain't just going to take it laying down and lose. They're going to make subs. They're going to change their system a little bit. They're going to analyse what went wrong in the first half and try and change things up. And sure enough, they did. But Leicester sit sedentary and increasingly negative as the second half ensued. I'm not blaming Andy King. I'm not laying any fault at his door. I think he's been left to carry the can in a situation which is extremely difficult, especially for someone of his level of managerial experience. I felt the subs, however, were negative, and they didn't help. Taking off attacking players for defenders, you're leaving yourself with less ability to attack yourself and get the pressure off yourself. And that compounded things for me, in my opinion. And the last 10, 15 minutes were just a catastrophe. The ground was very empty as well, even at the start of the game, let alone when Southampton score 3 goals in 8 minutes and completely destroy a 3-goal lead and end up with all 3 points. I'm still trying to understand or comprehend or come to terms of how that even happens. But it just heightens the fact that I'm of the opinion that when these players are in the ascendancy and they're playing well and they've got the lead, they look like the best team in the league. As soon as there's any adversity, the chips are down, people need to be counted and stand up. We will. And we will every time after time after time. And you have to start trying to figure out why that is and pick that apart. And there's lots of people who've had their say on that over the last few weeks. As we alluded to before we came on, last 4 games, 4 defeats, 10 goals conceded. We're 26 or 27 games without a clean sheet now. Some are in there. This is, for in every which way, shape or form, has got relegation written all over it. And in the meantime, we are weeks beyond Marty Cifuentes being sacked by the club in a really absurd Sunday where the owner comes out in the morning and says the manager needs supporting and then sacks him 4 hours later. And here we are. The betting odds keep changing on who's going to be the manager, which tells me there's nothing at the minute that's in any way serious. It's flitting from here to here to here to here to here. Sean Dyche has been snacked late last night by Forest, and let's just get in there within 12 hours. They've hired a new manager. They're not messing around. They know they're in a relegation fight. They know they've not got time to mess about, and they've done their business quick and swift, and they've made a swift and quick decision. Meanwhile, we're lurching through games which we needed to win, which were winnable, and we needed to win to try and get a cushion between us and the bottom three, with no sign of anybody turning up to take control of this mess. And for me, alarm bells are going off everywhere. It feels every piece like relegation to me, and I don't see anything at the moment other than a couple of cameo decent performances from the lone players here and there that's telling me any different.
What was that? Before we went live, you were talking about a few things about some the BBC Radio Live about I forgot his name, who went ballistic at top. So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I've been like I'm sure most Leicester fans when a game's over, the first thing I do is listen to Radio Leicester. And by and large, there's a mixture of people on there, but Matt Piper's been the consistent really on. I mean, less so recently, but it's been the consistent on there for the last few seasons. I've got a lot of time for Matt Piper. I think he speaks a lot of sense. He often says things that I'm thinking in my head. I think, yeah, you're on the money, and I've got quite a lot of respect for the man. I've never heard him talk like that as he did after that Southampton game. And I've never, if I'm honest, Jono, I've never heard Radio Leicester allow someone to talk like that. Radio Leicester have always been very measured in how they broadcast because they're frightened of the club saying to them, well, actually, you can't come to press conference, you can't interview the manager after games, you can't do this because you are becoming part of our problem. But it feels like the gloves are off. And I think that lends to the extremities of the situation that we're in, Jono, in terms of if Radio Leicester are allowing that, and I think I'll hasten to add, I think what Matt Piper said, a questioning the owner, questioning the football management. I'm not talking about Andy King. I'm talking about John Rudkin and the strategy and the signings that have been made, not just this season, but over the last few seasons that have led to this. Because I think everyone understands that this has not happened overnight. This is years of mistakes, errors, bad judgment, that have led to us to being in this situation. And I think he was absolutely on the money, in what he said and how he conveyed that over. So it was a new. For me, it was different. It feels like the tone is changing around the club, and the patience with the ownership and the running of the club, even in places where you'd never normally hear it, is starting to run out.
I think that game was the turn of the tide, not just for fans, but the football world. Everyone was under the illusion that we're just in a bad run of form, but I think that game made the football world open their eyes to realization of the state that Leicester City's in, not just on the pitch, but also off the pitch and behind the scenes. I heard about this podcast about the money in football, and if you've ever seen the Sunderland documentary, it's absolutely brilliant. Sunderland went down to League One. They went down twice in a row, and there for a few years. And this is one guy who went in there to help sort out the financials in Sunderland. What's his name again, Simon?
Yeah, I'd have to check. I can't remember.
And he did a podcast, and he basically said how he turned Sunderland around to sort their finances so they wouldn't go bankrupt and turn the club around, and they're now fighting to off the Premier League. He looked into Leicester's finances, and he said two things. So first of all, he caught up an idiot. The way he's been running Leicester City and the financial decisions he has made regarding Leicester City. He also said this: if we keep on going the way we're going, if we get relegated to League One, not only would we be in a financial deficit, we're also in a massive risk of being bankrupt. With the wages that we are on, with the debts that we have off the pitch, the state that King Power is in Thailand, he's pretty certain that if we do go down to League One, not only will be there forever, will also be the end of Leicester City as we know it, which really scares me. I think top. This is my opinion. No, this isn't Leicester Fan TV's or Simon's. This is my own opinion. I think Top is delusional. I think he's an egotistic person. I think he has no concept of reality regarding a business to football club to fans. I think he takes it lightly. The fact that he laughed in his interview and asked, "Where do you see the club next year?" He said, "We'll go up next year." I think you don't have to be a football expert to run a football club. What you need to do is, when Vichai passed away, sadly, he didn't want to be in this position. He was forced in this position. Now, he doesn't know a lot about running a football club, which is fair enough. But what he didn't do is he didn't surround himself with proper people. He just went, right, Rudkin's the person. And he was a yes man. And he's been naive. And if after the first relegation he went, right, that's it, let's make change, fair enough. But he hasn't. He's buried his head in the sand. So with the same board, changed nothing. Even after they said we'll do internal review, nothing's changed. No staff has been hired. We've been for a month with no CEO, no director of football, no communicator, no manager. I mean, regardless of how how you run a business, he doesn't know how to. And I just think there needs to be done. Change needs to be done. Now, there are a few protests being organised. There's a lot of things going on in the background. There is a Twitter page been formed, and it's called Unite for Change. It's on X, and this is a platform where there's a lot of influencers coming in to direct a change. Now, whether that change might be, it might be to get Rudkin out, King Power, whatever. But whatever it is, there needs to be big change going around. So I think before we go on to a few comments, Simon.
It's I don't really know what to say to that, if I'm honest. I agree with what you're saying, is the first thing to say. I don't have any ill will for Top as a human being.
I don't. As a person, he's lovely, but he's in the way he's running a business is naive, is delusional. He can't just laugh and joke in interviews.
I think Matt Piper summed it up well the other night. He said, "Look, we should be grateful for what this family and King Power has given this club over the last 15 years, and we should. We absolutely should. But it's a little bit like running a business when 10 or 12 years ago you made the most money you'd ever made, yet in 2025 you lost millions of pounds, and then still living in that time 10 years ago when you made money. You're not making money anymore. Your business is going out of business. You can't live in what is the past. And whilst we can respect the past, we can't live there because that's not where we are. And if you actually distill it down and you look at where we were even 3 or 4 seasons ago to what we've become, it isn't acceptable and it's not tolerable, and it cannot carry on. And when you hear experts tell you that if this carries on, you are not going to have a football club, then it's at that point for me where the fan base need to wake up, need to stand up for the sake of their football club. And this together, Jono, together, not fragmented in three different protests and together. Yeah. And ultimately, we can all sit here and go, get rid of Top, get rid of Rudkin, get rid of this, get rid of that. Top could own the club if he had employed a proficient board of directors with the relevant skill sets to run the club well. He can still own the club, You have to run it. But at the minute, we've got nothing. And you hark back to that interview that he gave down in Thailand to the club itself back in November last year, and he alluded to more communication. Well, we've had one round of interviews since, which, as you alluded to, some of which seem detached from reality. You've then got no appointments. He was talking back then about CEOs and sporting directors and this and that and this. He announced John Rudkin was going upstairs. We've had no one appear at the club to assist with the management of it. And now we are weeks into having sacked our manager with nothing. It just feels like the whole thing is not just sliding downhill now; it's hurtling downhill.
I think, to put it in perspective, I think with fans who see it in, look, as Simon said, what Top's family has given us as football fans will never ever be done again, and we really appreciate for what he's done. But like, what's the thing where it's got something in the bank? Like, he's banked. You've banked the Premier League win, but that bank can only last so much. He's overspent now.
Jono, sorry to button, but it would also be a shame, really, to tarnish that legacy by carrying this on indefinitely and getting worse and worse and worse, because actually you're undermining the good that you did with all of this.
Well,
how do you want to be remembered? At the club, do you want to be remembered with fondness and positivity, or do you want to end up being remembered for hanging around too long, mismanaging the club, not doing something about it? Because I think that's the key. If the fans could collectively see some sort of action being taken, then a lot of this pressure that's building around the club would dissipate. But there isn't anything. And when you've got financial experts, as we alluded earlier, saying, I've seen the numbers and it's scary. This club's will do well to keep itself the right side of the law, even if it stays in the Championship, let alone if it goes down. You can't carry on like that. You can't just sit back passively, clap the fans off after clap the players off after they've just lost and capitulated, and you've still got groups of players. Sorry, fans, I'm getting all muddled up now as I'm getting passionate, but you've got groups of fans still applauding them off from that. I mean, do they deserve that? Is that kind of blind support to the end? And I respect everybody's opinion. I respect everybody's right to have one opinion and disagree with what you and I are saying this evening. But it kind of feels like the actual club is at stake now. It's not just about whether you agree this player should be played or think this is wrong or, don't like the price of the pints at half time. Or it's not about that anymore. This is about actually the future of the football club. And it's more profound than that. And we've got to get together as a fan base and start to protect the club.
Can you read comments, Simon?
Yeah, I certainly can.
You read a few comments for a second. I'm just going to go and get something.
No problem, mate. Absolutely fine. Okay. So just that is absolutely right. It was Adrian Goldberg's podcast. So thanks for putting that in, Paul. I appreciate that. Whilst I knew that, it completely blown out of my head. Where's the Money Gone? It's called. It's on YouTube. If you do want to take a look, it's 25 minutes long, and it's educational for me, as educational as anything that I've seen so far about how the club status currently is and where it could potentially go if this gets worse. Phil, evening to you, Phil. Nice to see you watching this evening. I can only see Sean Dyche coming in and giving us half a chance. Well, Phil, obviously Sean Dyche sacked by Nottingham Forest yesterday evening late on. As soon as I don't know about you, but I woke up to that news this morning. I didn't see it late last night, but it started a snowball of effect around the Leicester fans. Obviously, Sean Dyche lives somewhere in Leicestershire, so he's a local guy. He's just out of work. It's kind of started the snowball of Dyche into Leicester till the end of the season. Will he come? I don't know. Have we been turned down by numerous managers over the last couple of weeks? I suspect we probably have, because I'm quite sure they started picking the phone up early on, and it just hasn't worked out. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of the people they're ringing up are far too ambitious for our current scenario, like the Enzo Maresca rumour that was going around. Why is he ever going to come back to us in the situation we're in right now? He's got absolutely no reason to tarnish his career at all. Couple more then, Jono, before.
Can I just cut in? I'm going to go back to this one. Richard says, I know that you guys are calling for a protest, which I'm for. And Jono, do you even go to games? Well, I don't go to games. The reason being is because I live in Newcastle. I am
upon Tyne, I hasten to add, not underline. You're way up there.
Yeah, I'm Newcastle upon Tyne. I've got a 9-month-old, but if you question I'm a fan, this is a section of all the shirts that I own. This is just a small sample of the shirts that I own. So you go back to this one, and I've got the FA Cup win one. I've got the reason we got relegated one. I've got the Gary Lineker one. So if you want to question,
I've got that one. I've got that one.
If you want,
as many as you, but I've got that one.
I've got the Europa League one. I've got the same shirt, but just the FA Cup one with the one on it. I've got our red shirt, boo. I've got
Jono,
Jamie Vardy's. So if
you're going to take the whole show up showing his off your shirt collection.
Jamie Vardy's.
You even bought one of them half and half tied duty-free ones, didn't you, the other day? Good grief.
Vardy's this is original Premier League shirt. So you want to question why I want to protest, it's because I love my club, right? And I want to protest. I don't care I can't go to games. I'm 4 hours up north from Leicester, right?
With a 9-year-old as well, a 9-month-old.
So I want this protest just because I want change to be at the club. I'm a massive fan. I watch all the games I can on TV. I want there to be change. So that's what all I'm saying. Anyway.
Point made, my friend. Point made.
So, Aaron Foster says Winks was classy on Tuesday.
Well, he was in the first half. Absolutely. I thought he was outstanding in the first half, but he evaporated like a lot of the players did in the second half completely. And for me, that just tarnishes the first half performance, because a game of football is 90 minutes long, not 45. You know, and you can be fantastic for 40 minutes, but if you're not going to show up in the second half, then it kind of wipes away the point of the first half, and the score completely and utterly wipes away any of the point of the first half at all, other than we would have got beat 4-0 if it weren't for the fact we scored 3 goals. Armchair Jockey saying Dyche is too expensive, Jono.
I mean, we're still paying off Steve Cooper, Ruben Nistelrooy, and now Cifuentes. We're paying off 3 managers' wages in the same time, as well as all the players. Of course, he's not going to come. Didn't you say he mentioned already that we've been offering 6-month contracts?
I heard. I mean, it's not based on any kind of substance fact. This is just stuff that I've heard chucking about, that the club at the minute are only offering out a contract to any manager to the end of the season. And I also heard that some of the managers had then turned it down on the basis that they wanted a longer contract. That wouldn't surprise me. It's not based on any fact or foundation. It's just something I've heard from a couple of places. It wouldn't surprise me, because at the minute, as you've just alluded to, they've just signed 3 managers in short succession on long contracts, sacked them, and have now got to pay them. So to put another manager on a 3-year contract and then kick him out after 6 or 8 months, whatever it will end up being, could be expensive. And of course, what you can't forget is, if you sign a manager on a 3-year deal right now and we get relegated at the end of the season, unless he's agreeing to a contract that significantly reduces his wages if we get relegated, then we'd be carrying another inflated wage into the League One when we've already got a whole swathe of wages which are Premier League. And that's why we're in so much peril if we go down in the first place. I get what the club's trying to do, but unfortunately, football management these days is one of the only professions in the world where you can do an atrocious job and become a millionaire as a result. and most of them want that sort of contract, or else they're not coming. But the club's made 3 what you could class as mistakes in the recent past, and it's cost them a whole pile of money. I mean, I saw Van Nistelrooy was out on a golf course the other day, and he was getting himself a new set of clubs and blah 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 blah. I mean, Christ,
That's to pay for that.
He's in. I'm sure he's not hard up for a couple of bob, having had that paid off. But there we go. That's football. But I suspect that's one of the reasons why they're struggling to find a manager, because they're trying to do this on the short term, and there aren't many that will take it.
But this is again the bad planning, because yes, Enzo left, and then you panicked and bought Steve Cooper. But why don't you just go, right, Enzo's left, massive shock, horror. Why not just chill for a little bit and go, right? Or they could have gone, every major business has a backup plan. If something doesn't work, do you have a backup? Those didn't have a backup because they got Steve Cooper, which is chalk and cheese football to what Enzo did. And then they sacked Steve Cooper and got an inexperienced Premier League manager. And then they got Cifuentes. Again, every manager has different styles of football. So then they have no plan. It's just reaction.
The Cooper one went against the grain, didn't it? But unless all of the kind of people around the club, that media-wise, that seem to know what they're talking about most of the time, are wrong. They'd spent a large chunk of that trying to get Potter in, and it went sour for reasons that are conjecture. And then they kind of went to Plan B because we were running out of time. So I don't think Cooper was maybe the intention. Or the intention was for Maresca to stay. And then he gets poached, which they should have anticipated potentially, given the good season he'd had with us and his Man City history and pedigree. They didn't. They got caught cold. He went, and then it's panic stations. And that is another example of how this club has been, run in a knee-jerk way for too long. I mean, it's like the transfer window has just gone. There were no rumours. There was nothing for almost the whole window. You didn't even hear one sniff of a rumour about Leicester are looking at this player, or they're trying to get this player. Nothing. And then all of a sudden, on deadline day, we signed 4 players. And you just think, have you just panicked at the end and just got, Christ, we better get on the phone, and all of a sudden conjured up 4 players? I don't know. By that point, most of the other clubs had done business, especially the clubs around us, like Oxford, that had signed 4 or 5 signings by that point. Most players were bedded in and actively playing for the club, still in the window. It just, this all seems knee-jerk and last minute.
Which is why it is. I feel it's time for change now. What would in your opinion, Simon? What would your change be if you were to change one thing at Leicester City? What would it be?
Well, the results, Jono. Well, I mean, ultimately, 4 or 5 good results. 4 or 5 results, and all of this goes away. Or a good chunk of it goes away in the short term. I don't think it comes back. I don't think it goes away long term, because 4 or 5 wins doesn't change the problems at the club. But ultimately, right now, if this group of people want to get the heat off themselves, they go and get some wins, right? But the issues here, for me, I'll repeat like you did earlier. These are my opinions. They're not opinions of Jono or Leicester Fan TV or anyone else. We are fans that sit here every Thursday and give our thoughts and feelings. This is not about a manager for me now. I don't think I'm not saying it doesn't matter what manager comes in, Jono, but it's deeper than that. We've been through three managers, and if you include Andy King, that's 4 managers that these players have repeated the same sort of performances and behaviour for. There's no way when Andy King sits in the dugout this week that he's thinking we're going to be winning at 3-0 at half time and get beat 4-3. He's not expecting that sort of performance out of the team. And as all of the players and all of the managers that have come and gone over recent times have said, training's gone well. We've done, things have looked good. But we go on the pitch and that evaporates. And that tells me that this is a cultural problem, which is deeper than one player or one manager, that needs to be got out, cut out of the club. And there are people in and around the club a lot closer to it than me that will know exactly where that culture's coming from, and that's what needs to go.
But what would you change though? Like, what would you change anyone in the board? Would you change? Would you get Top out, King Power out? Would you? Because something has to, for me, even under the season when Enzo was in charge, we got promoted. Good, we got promoted. However, even in that season, Top has proven that he still does bad business. That's the season why. That's the season where we got this 6-point deduction from. This season, we overspent. Now, you could argue by saying, well, that point, yes, we got promoted. However, there again, the club being reactionary. Oh, we went down. Let's spend our way being promotion, not thinking about the consequences. Not thinking about the consequences. We got relegated. Now we're suffering from it again. So, for me, even under success, they still can't run a club. So I think personally, all good things come to an end, and I think Top has run his course, and I think it's time for him and King Power. So not only that, it scares me. It scares me that King Power in Thailand is also suffering. What if they go bust in Thailand? So for me, it's time for Top to go and bring a new owner and bring their business strategy and bring their staff in to help fix and turn around this.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we need change. I think we all agree with that. We need change.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, talking openly, some of Top's problems is his blind loyalty to John Rudkin that seems to go beyond any sort of tangible business sense at all. And I'm sure he's embedded in all sorts of personal relationships, and they've been through the loss of Vichai together and all of that. And I absolutely respect and understand that. But I'm also 100% sure that, as you've just alluded to, with pressure on at King Power back in Thailand, that's not going fantastic. Their coffers have been significantly reduced since COVID because of COVID, and no one could equate or prepare or plan or expect that. So, I appreciate that that's something that's unavoidable for them. However, the other side of it is the last thing Top needs is a football club in jeopardy of being liquidated or going to administration. For his own financial sake as much as anything else. There's a lot of money been invested by the family and King Power into Leicester City. So it's not in his interest for that to happen. So it becomes even slightly more absurd that we're sliding down this slope. You'd think that someone would get a grip of it and get hold of it. And if Top's not got the time or the inclination to do it, fine, get someone in that can. Get someone in that can do it and get hold of this football club and avert this slide into what could be oblivion, because that's the risk.
But there's been reports that King Power haven't even put any money in to the club. Like normally, you put money into top up things, but Top has not been able to put any money in because he's been struggling. Apparently, he's had to sell his yacht. Again, rumors, not confirmed, but there's financial worries, not under the club PSR, but his own personal finances. I think there must be a time where you cut your losses, stuff like that. But there has to be some sort of change, and I don't believe a word he says, because even in November we're going to get change. Nothing's happened. Came out a month ago. We're going to hire new staff. Nothing's happened. Why would I believe him? If he says there's going to be change, why should I go, yes, I believe that man? He's been correct before.
This is not going to, let's be honest, none of this, even if you got your wish, Jono, even if the ownership top sat there one night and said, you know what, I've had enough. I'm sick of hearing negative things said about me. I don't want this anymore. That's not going to happen in 5 minutes.
No.
The change of ownership in the club is not going to. And if it might, I'm not saying it is, and I'm absolutely not saying it is, but it might be happening now. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know until it was done. Those sorts of deals are done privately. And those decisions are made privately. For business reasons and personal reasons. So that's not going to happen quickly. Right now, we need to avert going down. And that starts in the short term with a new manager, because we can't sign any players now. Window's shut. So we've got to get someone in who's got the level of experience and know-how and leadership skills, because I feel like we desperately need some leadership in the playing group, to get this lot to see that they are good enough to keep us out of the bottom three, and get enough points to make sure that happens. Because in the short term, that's what we really, really, really desperately need, and they need to hurry up and get it done. Because the more, all right, okay, this weekend FA Cup, I couldn't care less.
I couldn't care less.
I really couldn't. It's about getting the points to stay up. I couldn't care less if he puts the under 23s out and we get absolutely battered. I couldn't care less. We've got to go into these next two games, which are Stoke and Middlesbrough away. So 2 away games on the bounce here, having had quite a few games at home before that we've chucked in the bin. We've got to go into these games now and get points, and we've got to start building a buffer. And to my mind, by the time we play Stoke on the 21st, we've got to have a manager in the dugout, to support and help Andy King to get these players to turn up and get some points.
Exactly that. As I heard a ping, someone put a message. I thought I got a private message then. No. But my theory, Simon, is I fully agree with you. There needs to be short-term change of. The thing is I'm fearful that no matter what change we do get, is it going to be enough? As you said, the owners change. Will that be enough to steady the ship? If we get a new board, can they change things in time to stop us from? Has the damage that's been done already killed us? That's my fear. Of what we've done already set us up for failure, and we're in a ship where we can't stop it from sinking. Have we hit the iceberg?
You mean
we're going?
Sorry, you mean we're going down, Jono? Is that what you're trying to say?
The end of the. Oh yeah. Have we all? So the mentality, like, if you are any club facing us now, that no matter what lead Leicester have, if you have an ounce of pressure, if you counter us and keep going at us, we will capitulate. If we could drop a 3-0 lead and capitulate like that, every team that faces us knows no matter what lead we have against them, they can get something out of that game. That's what scares me.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that, any opposition does its homework on the team it's playing, and we must absolutely be now renowned for folding under pressure. And these managers at half time, if we're beating these teams, must be sat there saying to their players, you get at this lot for 10, 15 minutes, they will wilt. Yep. And you will get opportunities. And we are making it that easy. I mean, give Southampton their due. Whilst there's a lot of criticism of Leicester, they changed things up. The manager was intelligent with what he did. He tweaked the system. He made a couple of changes and got them right into that game. However, we sat there and did nothing.
No.
And we went deeper and deeper and deeper and just allowed them wave after wave after wave after wave of attack. And it's so any club, any team that allows the opposition to do that without giving anything back in terms of possession or attacking play is gonna concede goals, putting themselves under that sort of pressure for that long. I mean, Burnley in the Premier League this season under Scott Parker, especially the first half of the season, went out incredibly negative a lot of the games, putting 10 men behind the ball, and then we're just trying to scratch on the break the odd goal, and mop up pressure, almost admitting that they weren't of a standard to compete. So we'll try and play this way and get ourselves the odd sucker punch goal. It's failed. It's not worked. They're going down.
Yep.
I'm sorry, you can't invite that on, and that is, I'm not blaming Andy King for that. It's been going on at the club since the Steve Cooper times. It's great. It goes way back. This, but we keep repeating the same things over and over. And for me, the players have to stand up and take responsibility for that, because they're the ones that are consistent in this. They're the consistent. The managers have come and gone. Some of the players, to our knowledge, have talked behind the managers' backs to the owner here and there, negatively. They need. I could find you know better as a group of players. Go and show it. Get on the pitch and go and show it. Because you're not showing it. You're showing it for 20 minutes or half an hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then you're going missing. So you know better. Go on, go and show it.
Have they lost their fitness? Are they not training properly? They just look knackered? Like, Luke Thomas, I think, should never put on that performance in the second half was abysmal. But again, was it Candy King's tactics that made him left out to dry? I don't know. But they just look knackered. They look done. Our players just look dead after 60th minute, and then Southampton just went in for the kill.
For me, some of it's formation and system. And if you pick it apart, the fullbacks in the system that we play get exposed a lot. They don't get covered by the wing players. They get left to deal with whatever's coming down that side alone. Right? Now, I'm not saying it's an excuse, because I'm not making excuses. But why have we perpetuated the same system for game after game, after game after game after game, when it doesn't work? No. And no one actually sits there and thinks, well, actually, we could play different here. We could go 5 at the back. We could play 2 up front. When was the last time you ever saw that? Apart from for the last 10 minutes of games as a substitute. Why is no one thinking out the box? Because to my mind, if something's failing repeatedly, it's that whole definition of madness phrase. Keep repeating it forever. It just forever, and just keep failing. Makes no sense. Why not actually come up with something different and say, this isn't working. We're struggling. We've been struggling trying to do this for a long time. Change it. Change it.
Look at Amorim. He's at Manchester United. Did not budge. He played 5 at the back. Played the wing backs as 4 backs. He was like, nope, we're doing this. We're not playing Bruno Fernandes as a cam. He's going to sit back and do it over and over and over again. And what's happened? He's got sacked. Look at Manchester United now. They're flying. I'm not comparing to Manchester United. But what I'm saying is not saying the manager, because we've had the same football under 4 managers now. So I'm alluding to my theory that it's not the managers and this is that are giving them the tactics. I think it might be from higher up. But if you keep playing the same form of football, doesn't mean it'll get better. If we've seen evidence from other clubs and other managers, if you stick to one side of football and don't change, you will get found out and you'll get destroyed. It's happened to other managers, and whoever's making these decisions, because Andy King obviously is using Marty tactics, it's not working. Well, especially in the second half, that is the first thing that needs to change, is the style of football. The one tactic that won us the title was 4-4-2, counter-attacking football. We were unstoppable. Where's that identity? That is Leicester City. Where's that gone? Who is, maybe Enzo has installed this chippy type of football into, maybe Rudkin and Topper fall in love with it and want to do it forever. I don't know.
I think there's formation systems, players for times. There are formations that suit certain times because of football fashions at that time, allied over the players you've got available in your squad. A good manager looks at what he's got in his toolkit in terms of players, and forms a system and an approach to football that gives those players the best chance to perform. Not just what we've had, but what football's become in the last recent times is these managers appear with a philosophy which is set in stone, and then they try and shoehorn players into it on the pitch that just don't suit it, and then they wonder why the players then fail. This is the current football fashion, isn't it? managers turn up with a philosophy, and it's that philosophy forever or nothing. I mean, Maresca was a very passionate, and whilst it worked for us, and we did very well under it. He was absolutely committed and stubborn to what he was going to do, and made it quite plain publicly that if people started to question it and get on his back about it, he'd walk. That's what football's become, and it's a shame because you go back to when we won the FA Cup. Luke Thomas wasn't the player then that he is now.
No.
He's struggled this season, and he has struggled. He's not a bad player. He's a player, in my opinion, being exposed to too much, not getting the right cover, and it's on the manager. And I'm not saying that he's not made mistakes, because he has. I'm not saying that, but it's on the manager to identify that during games, work on it in training, and build a system that's more coherent and stops that from happening. And gives him some support. So it's multifaceted, this, and I think we desperately need a manager with some clear, strong leadership quickly.
But what manager is going to come in? What manager is going to come in? That sort of manager who has a no BS attitude. This club wants a yes man. They want a club that says, that do what they say. They don't want a strong personality manager that dictates what they want, their style, their method, their tactics. And if the players piss around, they don't get played. That is not how we've been run recently, which is what scares me, because for me, it's like, if your manager comes in, what's going to happen? The tactics won't change. All that will change is how not to capitulate like we did against Southampton.
We need something with more discipline and strength. There's been a lot of talk today about Sean Dyche, because obviously he's recently been put out of work. He lives locally, and I think a lot of people are thinking, Christ, get this guy into the end of the season. He'll get us enough points to keep us up. Regroup, rethink back, whether we extend his contract or move on. It gives us some time at that point to do that. I'll say this though, there's no, if a manager is just a shouter and that's it. So if players play rubbish, he just screams at them, and he's like, do that or else, and it's all a kind of fear management thing. That isn't going to work. It needs to be more multi-dimensional than that. A manager needs to have a philosophy that the players that are working with him believe in, that buy into, that he encourages and gets them to believe in and invest in. Maresca did that. Maresca built a system and a style, and whilst as a fan, I got bored out of my brain sometimes watching it. If I'm being honest, it had the desired effect, and the players bought into it. That's what we need. I don't think the players bought into Cooper at all. I think the players rallied against Cooper. I think there was whispering around Cooper in some of the groups of players. The fans obviously weren't going to give him a fair win because he was ex-Forest, and the whole thing, was a little bit of an uphill battle for Cooper from day one. I kind of thought, even though he didn't have a lot of experience, that when Van Nistelrooy came in, because of his playing history, that the players would give him more respect. But that was just even worse. And I don't feel like this group of players have bought into anyone since Maresca.
Well, we've always had an issue for the last 6-7 years of players dictating the managers around here. The last manager that I feel that the players didn't get rid of is Craig Shakespeare. I think he was the last one that I feel the players didn't have a part of getting rid of. Claude Puel, definitely. They played like crap under Claude Puel. Because as he left, Brendan Rodgers came in. We played some of the best football in Europe. So when these group of players leave end of this season, that'll be a really good thing. But will this player leave in League One? We don't know. Oh, Simon, I think we've been almost going for an hour.
Yeah, and there's a lot of disagreement coming in just looking at some of this for my comments about Luke Thomas. But I stick by it, and I respect all of your opinions, and we'll put them up on the screen to give some balance here. There's a lot of people saying that Luke Thomas just isn't good enough, and he's not a championship player.
Oh, people don't go scapegoating Luke Thomas. Look,
there's a lot of it here. There's a lot of people here just saying this guy, he's just bad. And I respect that. I respect everybody's opinion. I don't agree. There was a time when he played very well for this club, and I believe that could happen again. I just think that we are brittle, and I'm not blaming Andy King for this because he has been put in an impossible position where he's trying to hold the fort and tread water, not knowing from one week to the next if a manager's coming through the door, which is obviously in the back of the players' minds. The players are sat there thinking, "Who's turning up here? What's he going to look like for me? Am I going to play? Am I going to not? Am I going to like this guy and the way he plays and all of that stuff?" So he's in the middle of it, trying to keep it all under wraps and get a coherent, positive performance out of the players. But he has pretty much kind of repeated just what Cifuentes was doing for me. It's the same system. The way we go in kind of negative subs in the second half and we're trying to cling on to a narrow lead, it all looks quite familiar. No one's trying to shake this up and change it. And I'm not suggesting that Andy King should, because I don't think that's for him to do right now. He needs to hold the fort. But I feel like whoever comes in needs to shake it up, needs to get these players second guessing themselves and thinking about it again, needs to build some belief back into them because, let's be honest, Jono, that defeat, whilst it was absolutely bitter for us all to swallow against Southampton earlier in the week, for those players, it must have been an absolute confidence nuclear bomb.
Yeah,
going
they
off
are feeling down. Imagine going against Stoke next in the league, Stoke or Middlesbrough. I can't remember.
Stoke next and then Middlesbrough, but we've got Southampton again, of course, which kind of makes it even worse because they've got to go and face the same players that inflicted them on that. And they're going to get some stick, you'd think, from the Southampton fans as a result of it as well. And, they must be on the floor. They desperately need someone to come in quickly here and get those people, those players off the floor and get them into some sort of career. And that needs change for me. Change isn't just about kicking the owner out and kicking Rudkin out. It's about the philosophy of the way we play football. Because ultimately, the bottom line here is, Jono, if we were winning football matches, we wouldn't have sat here for the best part of an hour talking about all of this. No. And that's the bottom line. Football is about results. We want to be, as fans, entertained and moved away from all of the other challenges we have in our personal lives and get a little bit of a lift from watching our football team. And as Leicester fans, it's been a long time since we've had that.
It's making our private life seem good compared to what you're going through. Other thing, before we finish, there's one word which is lacking from Leicester City, which all of us can agree on as leadership. That's the change. Leadership. Off the pitch, on the pitch. Leadership. That's it. Whatever it's from top.
I think that's a great way to end. A great way to end this show. Leadership. Leadership on the pitch. Leadership on the touchline. Leadership in the boardroom. Something that the fans can buy into and understand and get behind and support. We don't want to be this fragmented and distant from the club and feeling so miserable about everything and having to talk about protests and all the rest of this. No one wants that. But you've got to stand up and be counted when things like this happen because the opportunity for change is not being taken. No. And that doesn't have to be extreme, but it has to be significant. Significant enough to change the fortunes of this club around and to get some decent, sensible, coherent decision-making in the club at all levels, which allows it to start moving back in the right direction again.
Yeah, I think, look, change is needed and change is leadership. As long as there's leadership, in any way, we're just rudderless. We're just a ship without a captain. We're a kitchen without a chef. We're a football club without a manager, a CEO, everyone. But we'll end it there because we could just talk for hours about how much we're depressed about Leicester City. But don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to follow us on all our socials. Just a bit of funny joke. Score on Sunday or Saturday, whenever the game is.
Knowing Leicester, they'll go out and win. Because it don't matter. It's not going to help us stay up, and it's just chuck away. And maybe because of that, the pressure gets lifted from this group of players because it is literally just that. And if Andy King sells it to them like that, actually it don't matter. So just go out there and do what you like. Just go and express yourself. Yeah. Actually, that might have a desired effect, and they might actually put in a performance which might help them take some confidence into the Stoke game the week after, which is immeasurably more important than playing Southampton in the Cup this weekend. So it would be absolutely in Leicester's character now to go out and beat Southampton 4-3.
That's very true. Yeah, very true. Well, we appreciate you all for watching. You know, our comment, we've both expressed a lot of strong comments. I kind of went on a rant about me being a fan.
Hey, you got to go and pick all them up now off the floor.
Mate, I've got to reorganise them. They're all in order. They're all in season.
While you were doing that, I'll ask a question on behalf of some of the people watching, because there are numerous people asking if you wore the shorts with the shirt as well.
I'm a full kit. Am I a full kit?
Yep, yeah, that was the question.
No, my daughter is. I'm not. I've got no shorts. I've got 41 shirts.
Wow. Your wife must be asking for a wardrobe back at this rate.
I've taken Olive's wardrobe. I've taken my daughter's wardrobe. So that's her wardrobe. No. Anyway, we appreciate you all for watching. We've got Jamie's show on Sunday where no one will care about the result against Southampton. We'll just be ranting about the ownership and stuff like that. And then Phil's show on Monday. We might go live if there's an announcement of a board member. We don't know.
Or manager.
Or manager.
There's rumours going around about a commercial director at the minute, which apparently the club's having to keep quiet for some legal reason, but that seems to be coming. So that means maybe some more shirts for you to buy in the shop, mate, in a not too distant future.
God. Anyway, if they're celebrating Fatawa's goal on the T-shirt, I don't know. Anyway, we appreciate you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
The Leicester City machine is on the march again.
Leicester Fan TV presents a variety of content like fan discussions, match analysis, and engaging with Leicester fans worldwide. We want your views live, thanks to our sponsors, Everard's, Pucker Pies, Hologram, Take Me, Newbie & Co, and the Fox's Arms.
Want to watch more content like this? Hit the like button. Give us your views. Hit subscribe to Leicester Fan TV and make sure to follow us on all socials.